So the first now, like if you were at home, right, you would have done some, whether it's this or a different version of preliminaries. And next, imagine that the central figure, like of the merit field, right? So in this case, it would be Lama Tsongkhapa with the Buddha in his heart, or Vajradhara in his heart. Or it could be a different one, might be the Buddha, or but anyway, in essence, it's your guru, the teacher, the Buddha. It comes to your crown of your head. So you kind of feel or imagine or visualize that now the Guru, Buddha, is at the crown of your head. And you think, like, please bless me to be able to meditate on karma. Please help me to realize this essential, totally essential point of the Buddha's teachings, so that I can then benefit myself and others, and progress towards Buddhahood itself. And so then you imagine that the Guru Buddha is pleased with that request, right? Because they're trying to help you. It's their wish also, is to help you progress to enlightenment. And they pour down like a rainbow of 5 colored light rays with nectar from your crown that fill your entire body. First, it kind of pours down and purifies you of all obstacles, especially any obstacles to effective meditation, but also obstacles of potential like health imbalances or karmic obstacles and so on. So it sort of pours down and purifies you. And then that rainbow light and nectar also totally fills your body, like from the bottom up, so that your body is kind of like translucent, radiant, 5-colored nectar light. And it blesses you to be able to progress on the path, to be able to meditate effectively on the teachings of karma, and all the other aspects of the path to enlightenment. So now we'll do the first of the various contemplative meditations on karma. And so this one is, we're going to now, so you think, okay, now I'm going to meditate. The first point about karma, which is like the general nature. After this we'll meditate on the specific karma, but first the general nature of karma. I remind myself, right? So each of us we're reminding ourselves, right? This is not about somebody else's karma, but about mine. Right? Right now, when I'm meditating on karma, the point is to relate it to my own experience, to my own actions, in order to shift my attitude, my approach to how I act, how I think, how I live my life. So the first general point is that karma is definite or certain. And so so I have to think, okay, the meaning of that is that virtuous, positive actions done out of positive motives lead to happiness, peace of mind, positive experiences, pleasures. And negative actions done with a negative motivation, are the cause of all suffering, misery, sorrow, pain. So I have to check, right? Like that's the brief points, right? I have to check, like, okay, so that's the teaching of the Buddha. That's the very nature of karma. have to check, like when I have to like analyze, right? Oftentimes I myself actually do negative actions thinking I'll get happiness. So wow, I haven't realized this point yet. Also, like when bad things happen to me, right, when I suffer, do I immediately think, oh wow, that's my karma? Or do I sometimes blame like other people, like say, oh, it's their fault? Do I sometimes blame the environment or political system? Like, do I project the blame onto somebody else for my own? And I'm not talking about trying to fix like right wrongs in the world. That's not the point here. The point is like, for my own personal suffering, do I sometimes blame others and get angry at them? Or do I honestly recognize this point? And when I want to be happy, do I immediately focus on creating good karma? Or do I do other things? I begin to see, right, as I contemplate this, wow, this is actually, you know, in one way this could seem like, oh, well, you know, good comes from good, bad comes from bad. Oh, everybody's good, bad. What goes around comes around, something like that. But actually, I haven't realized this point. If I look at my own experience, how I live my life, wow, even this most basic point about karma, I don't live my life according to it. Or at least much of the time I don't. So the Buddha is saying karma is definite. Wow, okay. So like, right, we're contemplating, wow, that means, like, if I want to be happy, I have to do positive actions motivated by patience, loving kindness, compassion, generosity, ethics, and so on. Oh, even though I've studied this, read books about it, it's as if I never heard it. That's like, if we honestly assess, right? Wow, if I don't want to be miserable, I have to be like totally careful with my actions, because everything I do matters. It's the cause of happiness and suffering. So if we contemplate this, you feel almost like revolutionary. Well, maybe I thought that happiness came from like getting ahead, or from people liking me, or from impressing somebody, or from getting more of something or other. Well, the Buddha's message is that happiness comes from my motivation, actually, from the karma I create, through what's in my own heart. Here the Buddha is saying, when I do things out of greed, or out of egocentrism, or pride, or anger, resentment, I'm definitely creating my own, right? He says definite, karma is certain, it's definite. I'm definitely creating the cause for myself to suffer. Wow, so many times I thought I was trying to make myself happy, and I was actually making myself miserable. That's what the Buddha's telling me. The second of these 4 general guidelines on karma is that karma increases greatly. They often give the analogy, right? Like from 1 or 2 little tiny seeds, an entire forest can grow. And they say that karma increases even more than that. And so again, like I have to contemplate, right? Wow, a lot of times, like especially if I'm just like, if it's not like some special day, if it's just an ordinary day, honestly, I often feel like what I do isn't that important. If I do this versus that, it's no big deal. What this is saying, this point is saying, is that what I do has huge impacts. Humongous impacts, because karma increases. So each little action I do matters. I have to check, wow, so often I don't feel that way. I think back, like over the last few days. How many times were there when I just thought, who cares what I do? I've had this feeling like it doesn't really matter. Well, each time I talk to somebody, it's almost like, whether it's like planting seeds that can grow into a giant forest, or whether it's like ripple effects. Each thing I do is important, is worthy of care, of mindfulness, of attention, of ethical consideration. And like you would think, wow, oftentimes I just think the big decisions are like that. So maybe I think some huge decisions in my life are like that. The Buddha is saying each moment is important and has big impacts karmically on my future, on whether I'll be miserable or whether I'll become enlightened. So if we contemplate these points, it should start to give us a feeling of, wow, I want to be careful. In a worldly way, this is how we contemplate. I'm just describing it. Like in a worldly way, if I'm like driving on ice, or if I'm like walking on an icy place where I could fall 20 or 30 feet, then I'm like incredibly careful. In the wintertime when there's ice on the ground. And if I know, wow, if I just like the slightest wrong turn and I could slide into a ditch and be stuck there, then I'm very careful. What the Buddha is saying here is that all of life is worthy of deep care. That everything I do is important in creating happiness or creating misery. Wow, we should actually feel, cultivating a feeling of, wow, I didn't realize that oftentimes. Oftentimes when I'm going about my daily routine, I forget. Third of these four general points about karma is that you don't meet with a result, good or bad, without creating a cause. So again, first of all, we can think, right? Wow, there's so many times when I meet with experiences, happy or sad, pleasurable or unpleasurable. And it never occurs to me that I create the cause for that. Oftentimes when I experience good things, it doesn't occur to me, wow, I created the cause for this, I should do more positive actions. When I meet with negative experiences, it doesn't occur to me, wow, this experience came from past negativities, I should be careful. I should restrain myself from that. So to realize, wow, I don't really have a karmic world. Even though I say I'm interested in Buddhism, and I've studied a bit, in terms of my daily life, it's as if I almost never think about that, actually. Moment by moment. carefulness, kind of being mindful of what kind of karma I'm creating. But what this is saying is that like karma creates my whole reality. So I have to check, like, if this is true, right? I mean, you have to check. But if the Buddha is right, then then guarding karma is the most important practice for building a life. Wow, sometimes I have the idea that other things are more important. What job I have, or like my house, or my relationship, what this is saying is that whether you have a happy relationship or not, whether you have a happy experience of job or not, whether you have a good experience in relation to having enough, is mainly caused by my own karma. You can even check, right? Like sometimes I think, oh, if I work hard, then I'll have enough wealth. Or if I'm careful and smart, I'll have enough wealth, something like that. But actually, there are people who work much harder than me who don't have anything. There are people who are much smarter than me who go through terrible loss. There are also people who don't work as hard as me who have much more, who are less thoughtful about it, but have much more. So the Buddha is saying here, it's the result of past life karma, or karma for the past, this life or past life. That's the main cause. The other things are just what they would call cooperative conditions. So again, it's to develop this feeling, this recognition. Oh, what matters is to be mindful in daily life of each thing I do. To bring a sense of awareness and care to each action. Because it's through those actions that I create my future experiences. If I want to have good experiences, I won't meet with them. They won't arise without the proper causes. And if I'm not careful and I create negative causes, it's absolutely certain that suffering will arise. It's definite. It's certain. So every time I have a negative experience, for sure it came from bad karma. If I want to create positive experiences, even up to enlightenment itself, I have to create all the causes. You can even start to feel, wow, so like when I get upset when certain things happen, it's because I don't understand this, right? Like, there's one text that says, it's like, if I set up the target on my back, and like kind of walk outside during hunting season, and then I get upset when something, if I get shot or something, it's like a metaphor, right? Like I'm the one who has to take the target off. I have to take some responsibility to change my karma. Again, developing this feeling, wow, each thing I do really matters. And how I do it, and with what motivation I do it. With this, the most important thing is what's in my heart as I do each action in my life. If each action is done in the moment with deep sense of love, of compassion, of kindness, of bodhicitta, then there's no worry at all. It's only pure joy. On the other hand, like if I let myself get lost and confused, and I live my life with, fluctuating between grasping and craving and fear and anger and resentment and, all these kinds of states of mind, then it's absolutely certain, right? I'm creating negative karma. I'm building up my own certain future misery. It's in my hands. My own happiness and suffering in the future are totally in my control now. That's what the Buddha's message is here. Because I can change, I can choose what kinds of karma I create. I can change my behavior, my thoughts, my motives. But I can't cheat karma any more than I can cheat gravity. That's what it says, karma is definite, for certain. It increases. You don't meet with a result without creating causes. It's like natural laws, right? Like if I don't plant tomatoes in my yard, I'm not going to get tomatoes. If I let weeds grow, then there are going to be a lot of weeds. You can't cheat. That's what this is saying. You can't cheat. Karma is natural law. I can't cheat it. I have to do the work in the moment. The work of awareness. It's not some external work. The work of being aware, of being honest with myself. And of living with a pure heart, with positive motives. Of not acting when I have a negative motive, of stopping myself. That's ethics. The last of these 4 points is that karma isn't lost, or it doesn't just disintegrate. So again, it's getting at this point that what I do matters, right? I might think, oh well, if I do negative things, if nobody notices, I can maybe get away with it. And sometimes we feel that way. Or if I'm just alone, nobody saw, then I get away with it. What this is saying is no, like, you know. Right? Whereas when you see yourself, when you know in your own self that you've done something positive or negative, then the result of that will come, and it doesn't go away just because of time. Karma doesn't disappear because time has passed. When the causes and conditions are right, the karma will ripen, unless I purify it. So to conclude this first general 4 points, the goal is really to feel some sense of, what I do matters deeply. My decisions, my actions, my thoughts are important. My main job, actually, is to be aware. To be mindful of what I'm thinking and feeling and doing. And as it said, right, as the verse said we started with, to avoid actions that are negative that will cause misery. Because I can't, I can escape misery if I'm mindful, if I don't do the negative actions. But if I do them, then misery is absolutely certain to come. If I do something out of hatred, I'll suffer. Just as surely as if I, let go of an object in space, it's going to fall down. If I do positive actions out of love and compassion, for sure, there's no doubt that will need to happen. And it increases, right? So the effects will be powerful. So in conclusion, we cultivate a feeling, I really want to guard karma. I really want to be mindful. I really want to be careful of this now. I want to really notice as many moments and as each moment, as much as I can, what's in my heart, what am I doing, how am I being. That's the guarding of karma. From now on, when I want to do something negative, I want to restrain myself. And then I want to cultivate the best positive motives and do as many positive actions as I can from now until the moment of my death. And then that will lead to happiness in this life, happiness at the time of death, and happy future lives. If I don't, then deep down in my heart I'll know that I've set up the causes for my own suffering. And I don't want to live that way.